Hello, dear friends. Nice to see you again. Come on, let's prepare some tea. Another interesting story is waiting for you to discover. Quickly take your seats, fasten your seatbelts, and the train will depart now. Our story unfolds in a bygone century, in a time vastly different from the world we know today. In a quaint countryside village, whispers of a mysterious visitor swept through the cobblestone streets and colonial-style homes. The townsfolk speculated endlessly. Some claimed he was a prosperous merchant, while others fancied him a nobleman from distant lands. The truth, however, was far more unexpected. The enigmatic figure was Ethan, a dashing and successful 31-year-old entrepreneur. His perfectly tailored suit and air of confidence were a stark contrast to the timid boy who had left this very town 25 years earlier, shattered by the loss of his mother. Ethan walked the familiar streets with a bittersweet mix of nostalgia and resentment. His memories transported him back to a time when life was far from kind. As a 6-year-old, Ethan and his mother, Clara, had lived on the sprawling estate of a formidable landowner named Mr. Hargrove. Clara worked tirelessly as a cook in the grand house, while young Ethan often sneaked into the kitchen, hoping for a taste of her creations. "Ethan, you mustn't be here," Clara would whisper urgently, slipping him a few cookies before ushering him out. "If Mr. Hargrove finds out, we'll be in trouble." Mr. Hargrove was infamous for his stern and unyielding demeanor, but his wife, Eleanor, was his polar opposite, kind-hearted and compassionate, a beacon of warmth amidst the coldness of the estate. Life carried on uneventfully until a mysterious illness began to ravage the region. Fear and uncertainty gripped the community, as even the authorities and doctors were at a loss. On the Hargrove estate, the situation quickly grew dire. Alarmed for his family's safety, Mr. Hargrove decreed that any infected worker be isolated in the old horse stables. "Hargrove, this is inhumane," Eleanor implored her husband. "We should use the guest house for the sick and hire nurses to care for them properly." But Mr. Hargrove refused, his tone cold and dismissive. "Don't be absurd, Eleanor. We can't risk the guest house. They're just workers, easily replaced." And so, the ill were relegated to the stables, dark, damp, and devoid of comfort. Among them was Clara, who, despite her own suffering, urged Ethan to stay away. "Ethan," she whispered weakly, "promise me you'll keep your distance. I don't want you to fall ill too." But Ethan couldn't abandon his mother or the others. He spent his days fetching water from the well, gathering fruit from the orchard, and brewing herbal teas in secret. From afar, Eleanor watched the boy's efforts with a mixture of sorrow and admiration, her hands tied by her husband's strict orders. Then came the night that would forever haunt Ethan. Rain poured in relentless sheets as he stood outside the stables. Through the storm, he heard a faint voice calling his name. Rushing inside, he found his mother among the suffering workers, her strength fading fast. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "it's time for us to say goodbye. Be strong, my son. Study hard and grow into an honorable man. I love you." And with those words, Clara's eyes closed for the last time, leaving Ethan to face a future forever shaped by her final wish. As she took her last breath, Clara's eyes closed forever. "No, Mom, no," Ethan screamed, his voice trembling with despair. Overwhelmed with grief, the boy bolted to the grand estate, disregarding every rule. He burst into the parlor where Mr. Hargrove sat calmly sipping his wine. "You need to call a doctor," Ethan begged. "My mom and the others are dying." Hargrove glanced at the soaking wet boy with utter disdain. "Who let you in here, you insolent brat? I wouldn't waste a cent on replaceable workers like your mother. Now leave before you ruin my floor." That tragic night, not only Clara but 2 other workers succumbed to the illness. The next day, Beneath a drizzling sky, Clara's body was laid to rest in the estate's small cemetery. Heartbroken and utterly alone, Ethan returned to the workers' quarters and curled up on the bed he once shared with his mother. As he sobbed, Eleanor, Mr. Hargrove's pregnant wife, entered the room. Despite her condition, she sat beside Ethan and cradled him gently until he cried himself to sleep. When he awoke, she handed him an envelope containing some money and an address. "Ethan," she said softly, "there's no future for you here. Take this money and leave for the capital. Go to this address. It belongs to my aunt, a kind woman who will care for you. There, you'll have the chance to build a better life." The next morning, Ethan boarded a train, leaving behind the only home he'd ever known. His heart ached with the weight of loss, but he carried with him Eleanor's words and a small spark of hope for the future. Now, 25 years later, Ethan returned to the village as a different man. Gone was the frail boy, replaced by a tall, self-assured entrepreneur. His sharp eyes no longer held innocence, but a steely resolve. Rumors of his arrival quickly reached the ears of Mr. Hargrove, whose fortunes had dwindled significantly. Seeing an opportunity, Hargrove invited Ethan to dinner, unaware of his true identity. That evening, Ethan walked into the mansion as an honored guest. Hargrove greeted him with feigned warmth, attempting to charm the wealthy stranger into investing in his struggling estate. Throughout the meal, Hargrove painted a rosy picture of potential profits, but Ethan feigned indifference, secretly relishing the older man's growing anxiety. Desperate to seal the deal, Hargrove made an unexpected offer. "Mr. Ethan, I see you're hesitant to trust me. As a gesture of goodwill, I would like to offer my daughter Beatrice's hand in marriage. This union would prove my sincere intentions." Ethan left the mansion that night, promising to consider the proposal. Intrigued, he decided to gather more information about Beatrice. The next day, he questioned the innkeeper about her. "Oh, young Beatrice," the woman sighed, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "She's the daughter of the late Eleanor, who tragically passed during childbirth. Poor girl. Mr. Hargrove has always blamed her for his wife's death. They say he keeps her hidden on the farm, making her work like a servant. Some even whisper she's been kept out of sight because she's unbearably plain, but who knows? These are just rumors." Ethan listened intently, his mind turning. Marriage was never his intention, but the mention of Beatrice sparked a new idea. She might just be the key to executing his long-awaited plan for revenge. Ethan accepted the marriage proposal, sealing the next step in his calculated plan. A few days later, Hargrove took Ethan to meet his future bride. They strolled around the estate, with Ethan silently recognizing every corner of the place that had once been his home. Eventually, they arrived at the stables, where workers tended to the horses. "Beatrice, come here," Hargrove called sharply, his voice full of authority. From among the workers, a young woman rose. She was unkempt, her clothes tattered and her face smudged with dirt, barely resembling the daughter of a landowner. "This is my daughter, Beatrice, your future wife," Hargrove declared with a forced smile. Ethan struggled to discern her features beneath the grime, his initial disapproval evident. Sensing Ethan's hesitation, Hargrove quickly added, "I know she doesn't seem like much now, Mr. Ethan, but I assure you she will make a fine wife and bear you strong children." Internally, Ethan smiled with cold determination. "First, I take his daughter. Then, the farm," he thought. The wedding was arranged for the following week. A modest ceremony held on the estate, attended only by Hargrove's business partners and the local pastor. Ethan was willing to endure this step to execute his revenge. But on the day of the wedding, a shocking transformation left everyone speechless. When Beatrice appeared, Ethan blinked in disbelief. She was radiant, her simple white dress elegant yet understated. Her hair, now clean and cascading in soft waves, framed a face of serene and striking beauty. After the ceremony, as they settled into the house Hargrove had set aside for them, Ethan surprised Beatrice. "You'll sleep in the bedroom, and I'll take the adjoining room," he told her firmly. "I am a man of principles, as my mother taught me. I won't force anything upon someone I've just met." In the days that followed, Ethan and Beatrice began to know one another. Mornings were spent sharing coffee on the porch, overlooking the farm. Beatrice surprised Ethan with her extensive knowledge of estate management, and they often discussed work matters. Afternoons were spent walking through the fields, exchanging stories about their lives. On one such walk, Beatrice confided in Ethan about her troubled relationship with her father. "My father and I never had a bond," she admitted, her voice tinged with sadness. "He's always blamed me for my mother's death in childbirth. Over the years, he used me as a bargaining chip, arranging marriages as though I were an object to be traded." Ethan listened intently, his heart softening. Beatrice continued, "I realized that if I kept myself dirty and untidy, I could scare away the suitors he brought. It was the only way I could protect myself." Intrigued, she then asked, "Why did you agree to marry me, even when I appeared like that?" Ethan hesitated. "I have my reasons," he said carefully, "but I can't tell you yet. You'll understand in time." Weeks passed, and their bond deepened. Conversations grew more meaningful, laughter more frequent. Ethan began to admire Beatrice's resilience and her radiant smile, a smile that reminded him so much of Eleanor's. Beatrice, in turn, found herself enchanted by Ethan's intelligence and unexpected kindness. They spent many nights under the stars, sharing stories. Ethan recounted his life in the capital, the challenges he overcame, and the journey that shaped him into the man he was today. Beatrice spoke of her dreams, to one day explore the world beyond the farm's boundaries. In one of these quiet, intimate moments, their hands brushed accidentally. Their eyes met, and in that instant, everything changed. What had begun as a calculated alliance was evolving into something far deeper. On a sunny afternoon, as they wandered through the sunflower fields, Ethan came to a realization he could no longer ignore. He stopped abruptly, gently taking Beatrice's hands in his own and gazing deeply into her eyes. "Beatrice," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "there's something I need to tell you. The truth about my past and why I came here." Ethan poured out his heart, recounting his childhood on the farm, his mother's tragic death, and how Eleanor, Beatrice's mother, had helped him escape. He confessed the years he had spent nurturing a desire for vengeance against Hargrove, and how he had initially viewed their marriage as a tool in his plan. "But something happened that I didn't foresee," Ethan continued, his voice softening. "I fell in love with you, Beatrice. You remind me so much of your mother, the same kindness and strength. It feels as though fate brought us together, as if I met you even before you were born when Eleanor held me that terrible night." Beatrice listened intently, her eyes glistening with tears. When Ethan finished, she held his hands tightly and spoke in a voice filled with emotion. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling, "I've fallen in love with you too. You've shown me that kindness and love still exist in this world, a world I'd given up hope of ever finding joy in." Ethan made a decision, his voice resolute. "I can't go through with my plan against your father. For years, I let hatred consume me, but the love I feel for you has erased that bitterness. Let's leave this place, Beatrice. Let's start over, together." Tears streamed down Beatrice's face, but a radiant smile lit her features. "Ethan, I'll go anywhere with you. I love you." There, amidst the sunflower fields, they sealed their love with a passionate kiss. The gentle wind swayed the sunflowers around them, as if nature itself celebrated their union, a moment of redemption and a fresh beginning. That evening, as they packed their belongings, Ethan reflected on his journey. The frightened boy who had fled the farm all those years ago had found peace and love at last. He realized that true revenge wasn't about destruction, but about rising above the pain of the past to build a better future. At sunrise the next morning, Ethan and Beatrice departed, leaving behind the farm and the burdens it carried. Ahead of them stretched a new chapter, brimming with promise and hope. Together, they had learned the most profound lesson of all. Love has the power to heal even the deepest wounds and transform a heart scarred by hate. Hand in hand, Ethan and Beatrice walked toward a future they would create together, carrying the certainty that love truly can overcome all obstacles. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a comment and rate it from 1 to 10. Don't forget to watch the video now appearing on your screen. See you soon.